If I had something that's not a cube that has round contour lines to start, what you would do is find the outermost edge of your initial shape. So I'm going to find this outermost edge, and then that is what is going to go back to your vanishing point. I'm not going to connect that all the way back because I already have a lot of lines going on. Then you would close this off with a line that is parallel to this edge. So you can freehand it, or since I conveniently have this as my template, I can use that to trace around like that. So this line and this line are converging to your vanishing point. Next, I want you to practice at least 2 different letters. You might be running out of room a little bit, so if you need to erase some converging lines, you can do that. I am going to start by making a box. Very important to start with a box, so then you can think about carving out your letter from your initial box. And I say box and cube interchangeably. So remember, you have a shape that's a square, and then you have a form that is a cube. A shape is 2-dimensional, a form is 3-dimensional. I'm going to draw the letter H. The letter H is pretty straightforward because it's only horizontal and vertical lines. I'm going to use my existing box to kind of carve out the legs and that middle bar of the H. So to do that, I'm first going to draw a vertical line for this leg on the right, and then I'm going to draw a vertical line for this leg on the left. If you want to be really precise with this, you could measure how wide you're making each of these, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And then I'm going to draw this middle bar straight across. And again, I'm just going to eyeball this. But do make sure that your line, again, is perfectly horizontal. So obviously I have a block letter here. If you want to go ahead and erase some of these extra lines so it's not as confusing, you can. Then I'm ready for my step 2. So step 1 is always drawing the flat shape on the front of your object, and then step 2, connect corners to vanishing point. In order to know where this back edge of the leg on the right is located, find where this converging line meets your horizontal line. So at this point, I'm going to make a vertical line, and that is where I know to close this off. This is where it might get tricky. Like, I just have the tiniest sliver of the vertical line that shows from this converging line that's above the bar. It's nearly nothing, so I could just ignore that. But then you will also find the bottom of this middle bar by making a horizontal line to close it off where you have this vertical line meeting this converging line. Erase your extra lines. Draw one more letter of your choosing wherever you have room. So I could draw a letter here, or I could draw a letter here. You could draw your letter directly above or below your vanishing point. Just know that if you do that, you won't see any sides. So for now, it's better if you make your letter farther away from your vanishing point so you can practice getting those converging lines. I'm going to draw the letter A so you can see some of the exceptions to our cube rule, that lines could only be either vertical, converging, or horizontal. again, I'm going to start with my initial square. However, I'm not going to connect my corners yet because an A is so different. So if we think about making a block letter A, you might be a perfectionist and want to measure to get your perfect dimension of your halfway point of where the middle of your A will be. So I'm going to use that as a reference and connect just a little bit to the right of that line and connect that to my corner, and then a little bit to the left of that line and connect that to my corner, because I want this A to have a flat top. You could have it pointy and that's fine. And then I'm going to go down right below that middle part and then make the other part of the bar parallel to the first line that I just drew. And so this will be an upside down V. Obviously, if you're making a V, this is what you would do. And then I'm going to make the middle bar and erase my extra line. Now, if you would like, you can erase the first square that you started with. Once you get really good at perspective, you don't always have to start with that first square or cube, but I think it's really helpful in order to make sure that you are getting the dimension. You don't want to like pretend this is like a block and have the letter like drawn on top of the cube. You want to carve the depth of the letter out of your initial cube. So after you have your face of your letter drawn, then you are ready for step 2. Connect all of your corners to the vanishing point. And again, I'm not going to draw these all the way back to my vanishing point. I'm just going to make sure my corner is matched up and then make the length of line that I can erase later. This is where it gets really confusing in this corner, that I have this diagonal line and then I just barely have the back edge of that where it goes back in space. So this demo may not be the best to help you understand what's happening. Next, I'm going to choose how much of the depth that I want for my letter. I'm going to keep this kind of skinnier. Close that off with a line that's parallel to this line. So 1, 2, 3, these lines are parallel, and where you have that line that you just drew meeting with this converging line, that line will be a horizontal line. So here you have the exception of having diagonal lines that go nowhere, but these lines make sense because they are part of the face of this letter. So I would also actually see this top part. In order to get that, for now, I would just say you can eyeball it, but there is a specific way that you can find that depth. I get a lot of questions about how to draw the letter S, so I'm going to go through that quickly. Again, I am going to start with my 1.5 by 1.5 inch square. To draw the face of my S, I'm going to start by making this like a block letter. So I am going to make 3 bars, 1 for the bottom, 1 for the top, and 1 for the middle. I know this looks really weird right now. Then I'm going to make a vertical line here and another vertical line here. And then I'm going to erase those extra lines. And this is to make sure that your S is actually going in perspective. So first we're going to start with this really block type S. If you want to, you can also extend these kind of tails, I guess, at the top and the bottom, like that. You can choose to leave your block S like this, or if you want to curve it, then all you do is chop off the corners. So I'm going to round my corners. And I can round these a little bit more if I wanted. Just like we talked about with our circle, going back in space, you will find the outermost edge of your curved line to connect to your vanishing point. And again, I am not going to draw these all the way back. The confusing thing is in the corner, you might want to just like give yourself a reference to have that corner, but you don't have to. You can also just remember that that is going to be an area that has depth to it. Next, close off the bottom edges to make your depth, so however deep you want your letter to be. And this is where your line is similar, meaning it's parallel to this line above it. So I'm using this measurement to go upward to get this depth, and that will connect me over this direction. I honestly wouldn't see this part, so if I made it like really skinny, maybe that would be easier for you to tell what's happening, but let's go back and make this skinnier so you can see that that would be closed off. And this would be closed off there, and this would be skinnier, so that this would be skinnier. Another important thing to remember is that obviously when things are closer to the horizon line, the amount that you see at the top or the bottom is much smaller. So if something is far away from your horizon line, then you would see more of the top. And then as something gets closer to your horizon line, you wouldn't see as much of the top. Also, this is pretty self-explanatory, but obviously you're looking at the face of the object. This is your eye level, so you don't see the top or the bottom. If something is above your eye level, you see the bottom, like these are floating above you. If something is below your eye level, you see the top. So this would be more common because things that are like sitting on the table are obviously below your eye level.